How you guys doing? Whew. Here we are in week 2 now, week 2 being quarantined. I hope that you guys are having a decent time. Let me turn this off, there we go. Having a decent time, that everything's working out for you guys. I know I sure am, and I'm still trying to learn all these tools and all this crazy stuff, but we're making it by. I had a good discussion with you guys last week. Thank you so much for your work, talking about the Rio de la Plata, talking about Argentina, talking about Uruguay and Paraguay. I hope that you guys had a good time studying those countries and a little bit more about their cultures. And like I've said in many of the posts, especially the food, I am always a fan of that. So today, what are we going to do? We're going to finish up this chapter finally. It's been kind of weird with just all the changes that have been going on. We're finally finishing South America. This is our last lesson this week. We're going to locate and label Brazil on a map, locate the 3 main geographic regions of Brazil, and we're going to contrast the cities of Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo. And for the record, we're not going to spend a lot of time on those cities. I have some videos for you to watch, but we will briefly mention something about Rio today. Google Classroom, as always, will have everything you need, so just make sure you check Google Classroom for your assignments this week. So here's our last time looking at this map. It's kind of sad, but South America, and as I've been saying, I've been saying this a lot already, but Panama up here, it's the last city of North America. And we have, oh, hey, Katie. And then we have over here the rest of the continent. You have the Andes Mountains that run down the west coast, right? You have the coastal plains up here. You have the Llanos, the grassy plains. We've been talking about some of the different topographical features. Well, now we're going to focus on our last country here, Brazil. And Brazil is significant. It's the biggest country by area, and it has the biggest population. There's over 200 million people in Brazil. So, I mean, it's a lot of people. And it's by far the most populous and the biggest country. So, pretty significant. So this is the country right here of Brazil. And let's learn a little bit more about it. So one thing kind of interesting is you go back and you start to study how it became the country it is today. And when Spain and Portugal were both sending explorers over to the New World, there was, of course, some squabbling over who would get what. And so what was decided was, originally, it was actually a pope, it was Alexander VI, put together what's called the line of demarcation, and saying, hey, this is going to be the dividing point. So, you know, some of you guys can explore these islands and these places, the other country can explore these ones. And actually, let me scroll down to that map just so you can see real quick. So originally this is the line of demarcation, which Pope Alexander VI set up. But then eventually Spain and Portugal would put together the Treaty of Tordesillas, and they would push that line back a little bit. And so if you can see here, this is the chunk of land that would go to Portugal. So Portugal basically got all the land on this side, so on the eastern side of the line, and Spain got to check out the land on the west side of it. And in case you're wondering a little bit about Spain and Portugal real quick, this is well, let me go back here. This is the continent of Europe, right? You can see it up here. And then go down here, you can see these are the countries of Western Europe on a map. And this is called the Iberian Peninsula, right? This area of land right here. And if you go over here, you can see Spain and you can see Portugal. These are the two nations on the peninsula. And Portugal was the one who ultimately got to claim the land that is Brazil, whereas Spain got pretty much everything else on the continent of South America. So that being said, here's where it makes a difference. So if basically Portugal got all this land, then it makes sense that that's the only country in South America that speaks Portuguese. Portuguese became the language of Brazil. And then that's why you see so much Spanish spoken in the other countries. Dom Pedro is a pretty significant figure in Brazil's history. He was the one who ultimately declared independence and became the king of Brazil in 1822. So that marks a split from their European ownership. So obviously he's going to be a significant figure in Brazilian history. Okay, moving along, these are the 3 main geographic regions. The Atlantic coast is pretty self-explanatory. You have all this coastline. This is the Atlantic Ocean, obviously east of the continent. So the Atlantic coast. Then you have the highlands, which are down south. You can see it's a plateau, and you can tell by the topography here that it's going to be elevated land, a little bit more rugged. So these are the highlands of Brazil. And then you have the Amazon basin, which is the northern part, this real green, lush area here. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second when we talk about the Amazon River system. But for now, the Amazon basin is up here, right? Then you have the highlands down here. And then you have the coast on the eastern side of the country. So we already talked about the line of demarcation, the Treaty of Tordesillas, and a little about Spain and Portugal. So moving on further here, I should mention one interesting part of Brazil is the Iguazu Falls, the widest waterfall in the world. And it's funny that I end up choosing this dinky little picture. It doesn't even come close to doing justice to it. So I definitely recommend looking up some videos if you want to see the majesty of this waterfall. But it is the widest waterfall in the world. And it's definitely pretty impressive. That's located in the highlands. And if you want to look, let me scroll up here for a second. It's going to be way south on the map. The Treaty of Tordesillas is somewhere in this region. It's way south in Brazil. But yeah, fascinating waterfall. I do want to talk about this too. We talked about the Amazon basin, and this is a little bit more of our of the foundational chapters that we talked about at the beginning of the year. We talked about a basin, and basically in geography, when we talk about a basin, it's an area of land where the water that the precipitation collects and is going to go to a certain source of water to flow out, right? Or to settle somewhere. And so you have the basin of the Amazon right here, and you see all those little rivers, right? They're feeding into the Amazon River and being discharged in the Atlantic Ocean. So this is the Amazon basin because it's basically a large area of land where the water that's collected there will ultimately go to the Amazon River and flow out. It's worth knowing it's the largest. It drains the largest area of land compared to any river in the world, and there's more discharge. And discharge is the water that actually comes out of the river, right, into the ocean. There's more discharge from the Amazon River than the next 10 rivers combined. So it is an impressive river system. It's huge, very powerful river with lots and lots of water. And I should mention, actually, let me scroll back up one more time, is we talked about the eastern and the western continental divides in North America. Well, in a similar kind of way, all the water that falls, obviously in the basin, is going to drain into the Amazon River and out to the Atlantic Ocean. But we have the highlands here, and the same thing kind of, like we talked about the continental divides, the water, there's a certain point here where the water falls and drains down into the Rio de la Plata. So you have water that's going to collect and drain out into the Rio de la Plata down here, but all the water up here is going to flow into the Atlantic Ocean from the Amazon River. So interesting thing to know. And again, this is the Amazon basin, and all this water is going to collect and discharge out into the Atlantic Ocean via the Amazon River. So it's kind of cool stuff. And I do want to mention something about the Amazon River too. There are two problems that can threaten the lush vegetation of the area: leaching and deforestation. And we've talked about these before, but as a reminder, leaching is when you have constant rains, and if it can happen where it continues to leach out or to take out the essential nutrients for plant life, and they'll be washed into the river and taken away. And if that continually happens and there's no way to replenish those nutrients, then obviously you might have problems for more plants to grow in the future. And another problem that can happen is deforestation. When lumberjacks take out trees, if it's not done correctly, what happens is they continually loosen up the soil, right? And loose soil is able to, basically as it rains and as water falls, then it can wash out and it can just break up and flow out. So you can lose a lot of that valuable soil. So what's happening in the Amazon, you see a lot of people freaking out about, we need to save the rainforest, save the trees, because of the massive amounts of deforestation and the leaching too. That can cause problems for future growth. And the fear is that if you do this too much, then you might have a problem growing trees, and that could hurt the ecosystem of the Amazon. And it is true too, that we've talked about this many times. We believe that God has given us this world to take care of and be good stewards of it, right? We do need to pay attention to things like that because we don't want to harm the plant and animal life, or ultimately, more importantly, the human life that's in that area of the world. We've seen this happen before. If you look up for example, in America, even go back to the early 20th century, when in the Midwest, the Plains area in particular, I should say, people were over planting. I believe it was wheat was the crop. Double check up. I think it was wheat. But they were just basically, rather than following the traditional crop rotation where they could replenish nutrients and do things at a good moderate pace, people just kept planting wheat because there was a demand for it and they wanted to make money. So they just keep planting and planting and planting and nothing but wheat. And what happened was it drained all the essential nutrients, and basically the earth, the soil basically went dead and dried up. And you had a lot of winds for a season. So what basically happened was you couldn't grow anything, and the wind was blowing dust everywhere. It was called the Dust Bowl. And that ruined a lot of people's lives. People had to move. That's why Southern California got a lot of people from Oklahoma and places like that back in the early 20th centuries, because they fled to the West Coast because they had nothing. Their farms were dead. So we do need to be cautious with how we treat the land. You got to give it its chance to rest. You have to replenish the nutrients, and the Amazon rainforest is no exception. So deforestation and leaching are two things that we need to be cautious about and make sure that we can watch the health of that area of the world. Okay, as far as the cities of Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo, I don't want to spend a lot of time on the slideshow. I want you guys to watch some videos just so you can see how cool these places are. This is definitely a place I want to visit for a vacation. Both places, really. But Rio de Janeiro is usually just called Rio. And in Rio, I want to show you, this is a classic, like a landmark. It's Christ the Redeemer. It was a statue built, I believe, in the early 19th century, early to mid 19th century. And it's this massive statue of Christ. And he has his outstretched arms overlooking the city, clearly saying, hey, I'm the God of your city, you know, I'm your Redeemer. And it's a really powerful symbol, I think. And to put things into perspective, you can see these are people standing around the bottom of the statue. It's huge. It's a really big statue. And one of the videos I'm going to post is a guy who has to climb out on top of the statue to repair a few parts of it. And if you're afraid of heights, oh, you will definitely not envy this guy's job. But it is pretty cool to see. But all to say, again, Rio, fascinating, beautiful city in South America, in Brazil. And Sao Paulo is another one too. And you guys are going to see some videos of those a little later. And I actually have them here, but I'm going to post them on Google Classroom for you a little later. So to conclude this lesson this week, I want you guys to watch CNN 10 every day, starting this week, not just on Fridays. I want you to watch CNN 10 throughout the week. And on Friday, leave a comment from any episode. You can leave a comment from Friday, from Wednesday, from Monday, whatever you want to do. But leave me one comment saying what you found to be the most interesting part of it. I want you to watch all the videos I post, and I'm going to have a discussion for you guys, which will pull from the lecture and or the videos, depending. Make sure you participate in the discussion. And as for the assessment, that's going to be the test, and it's going to be done differently. You're not going to be sitting and obviously doing the Bob Jones test. I'm going to give you guys a project of sorts to research South America, but it'll be graded as a test. So make sure that you definitely do your best, and reach out to me by email if you have questions. Do not wait till an hour before it's due to start, because I probably won't be able to get back to your emails if you have questions. Email me early throughout the week and just get it done. That's what I would say. And one more point I'm going to mention about the discussion here is I'm not going to be giving you guys word minimums anymore. I had a really good talk with Mrs. Wolf, and she had some good insights for me. I'm just going to have you guys trust that you guys can do a well-developed paragraph, expressing your opinion in an ample way. And you guys know the kind of expectations Mrs. Wolf has for her paragraphs in English. So I want you guys to have that same kind of concern and care for your paragraphs here. And if you give me sloppy, short paragraphs, don't expect good grades. And to quote Mrs. Wolf, do not shortchange me. So give me a good, well thought out reply. And if you do that, then you will score well on the discussions and on all assignments. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great week. Just reach out if you have any questions. Love you guys.